Kalos couldn't avoid a collision even though he applied the brakes. The Kia driver then took off, leaving him confused. His Corolla, which was decorated for Halloween, was totaled, and he and his passenger were both injured. The Kia driver was later caught and arrested for DUI and hit and run. Kalos is still waiting to get a settlement for his totaled car. Paolo was driving his Subaru when the driver of an Alfa Romeo failed to yield and turned in front of him at an intersection. Paolo hit the brakes and swerved as soon as he noticed the SUV turning in front of him, but he slid into it anyway. Even though he was later diagnosed with a concussion, he managed to call 911. He also received whiplash and his Subaru was totaled in the impact. His airbags deployed and he was taken to the emergency room to be x-rayed. Fortunately, no fractures were found. He wanted to thank the Markham Fire Department, York Region Paramedic Services, and the York Regional Police for responding to the scene, and the staff of the Markham Stouffville Hospital for ensuring he was taken care of. What the heck is happening here? Let's go back to the beginning and find out. Ricardo was asleep at 2 a.m. and his neighbor came and woke him up after this happened. The drunk driver of a red Jeep smashed into Ricardo's Volkswagen after hitting another car parked behind him. This obliterated a front wheel, but that wasn't enough to stop the Jeep driver. After backing up, the drunk driver hit Ricardo's car a couple more times before smashing into a white Mazda parked ahead of him on the street. Bystanders put themselves in harm's way trying to stop the drunk driver, but he took off again, smashing into no fewer than 3 more cars before finally stopping. Eventually, the Jeep became immobilized. Police arrived and the driver was taken to a hospital for minor injuries. His insurance policy couldn't cover the over $35,000 in damage done, with $9,500 of that being done to Ricardo's Jetta. Ricardo had to use his own insurance policy to cover the damage to his car, and the drunk driver's insurance policy only paid for his deductible. Noah was on his way home in San Diego, California in his 2016 Ford Fusion. He'd told his wife to take their 1.5-year-old baby home in her car and he'd meet her there. Suddenly, the driver of a gray Honda Civic turned in front of him at an intersection. Noah was knocked unconscious and the other driver fled the scene. Police responded and Noah was transported to a hospital with only minor injuries. Unfortunately, Noah's Fusion was totaled, but the good news is that the San Diego Police Department caught the Civic driver that same night. Angie was driving her BMW X1 on a highway in Canada when she approached a yield sign at an on-ramp. Another driver ignored the yield sign, cutting into traffic and forcing other drivers up ahead to slam on their brakes. Angie was following too closely and couldn't stop in time and rear-ended a Jeep. Luckily, the Audi driver behind her managed to stop a few inches short of her bumper. Angie filed an insurance claim and her BMW was deemed a total loss. Since the value of used cars has skyrocketed, she actually got back exactly what she paid for it over 20 months ago. The Jeep that she hit had a steel bumper that didn't even get scratched, so the driver didn't even bother to file an insurance claim. Chris was on his way home from a job interview when his Kia Rio was suddenly rear-ended by a pickup truck. It doesn't look like the pickup driver even tried to slow down until the last second. Chris managed to keep his car in his own lane, but the pickup veered off into a ditch. Both vehicles were totaled. The pickup driver's insurance provider only paid for a rental car for Chris for a week, and his attorneys are now negotiating with them for a larger settlement. Unfortunately, this caused him to lose his pizza delivery job because he didn't have a car, and the restaurant's new management accused him of failing to communicate even though he told them about what had happened. Remember when I mentioned Chris had been heading home from a job interview? At his new job, he deals with no food, no customers, and he gets his own company vehicle. He sent along a shout out for his old manager Bean, who did a great job running the pizza restaurant until the new management came along and fudged it all up. Amelia was waiting to turn left at an intersection she told us has been under construction forever. Watch what happened when another driver entered the intersection way too fast and tried to turn right. Amelia's airbags deployed, and the lady driving the Honda Civic called 911 while Amelia was still in shock. First responders arrived quickly thanks in part to the fact that a hospital is right next to this intersection. Both the Civic and Amelia's VW Beetle were totaled and had to be towed away. The Beetle had also been pushed backward into a van, but it only sustained a small scratch on the front bumper cover. Amelia told us that having a dash cam has saved her a lot of time. She also said, "Shout out to all people who don't have a dash cam. Get one as soon as you can. It saved my butt and can save yours." James was on his way to school with 4 passengers on a bright, sunny New York day. Suddenly, the driver of a Honda Civic pulled in front of his Chevy Malibu.
Are you serious?
The impact was so hard, the Honda was pushed into a Toyota Sienna, making this a 3-car accident. James had been honking his horn when the impact occurred, and the airbag broke his wrist when it went off. The Honda driver was cited for failing to signal. James has no idea why the Honda driver didn't see him, but he assumes the guy was on his phone. Each driver moved to make room for the other, but Jean-Paul's van lost traction, swerving off the road and rolling over before finally stopping. Jean-Paul was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, but he was able to leave the same day. Unfortunately, his van was totaled. Thankfully, he was able to replace it with a new one. Brian was driving through a construction zone on an interstate highway. As he entered an area with concrete barriers on both sides and nothing resembling a shoulder, traffic suddenly slowed way down. Brian slowed down safely, and so did the Kia driver behind him, but the driver of a Nissan SUV wasn't paying attention and slammed into the Kia, pushing it into Brian's Jeep as well. Brian had tried to make room in case something like this happened, but it wasn't enough to completely avoid the collision. Thankfully, he was able to avoid hitting the next car, and his steel bumper wasn't damaged. Thankfully, nobody was injured in the collision. Brian left after checking on the other drivers, but he has no idea how they went about cleaning up the accident, unless a tow truck drove backward down the highway to reach it. I was driving my Hyundai XG350 along one day with my wife Melissa in the passenger seat when I slowed to a stop to make a left turn across traffic to get to my house just 2 blocks away. The driver of a pickup truck behind me wasn't paying attention and rear-ended my car at about 35 miles per hour. Luckily, my foot was already on the brake, so I didn't get pushed into any oncoming cars. I pulled off the road and helped the pickup driver get out of the road so we could exchange contact information. Melissa called 911 and the fire department came and checked everyone out.
Okay?
Really bad whiplash.
She'd hurt her neck, and I'd hit the bill of my hat on the steering wheel, which left a small cut on my forehead. I'd also hurt my neck and back, but fortunately, nobody needed to go to the hospital. I was able to drive my car the remaining 2 blocks home, but it was totaled. The pickup driver's insurance provider paid for the car and for our medical treatment. After the accident, the pickup driver tried telling his insurance provider that the accident had been my fault because he hadn't seen me, as if that was somehow my fault. After I sent my dashcam videos to both insurance companies, they ruled 100% in my favor and found the pickup driver to be fully at fault. I know my car looks weird, so let me offer a little explanation. I used to produce an audio podcast called Foamcast Radio all about the Nerf Blaster hobby, and I decorated my car to promote it. You can still go listen to the podcast, by the way. Someday I might even make some new episodes. This submitter was headed home one snowy night. As he was transitioning from one highway to another, he noticed snowplows backing up traffic and figured he could squeeze by them. At the moment he was attempting to pass the snowplows, they moved to the right without signaling, surprising our submitter. When he swerved to avoid hitting the blade, the snow caused him to lose control. His Subaru Impreza slammed into the plow blade, ripping off the side view mirror, wrecking the driver's side door, and leaving yellow paint down the side of the car. Our submitter admits this accident was his own fault, and he knows he should have slowed down and merged behind the snowplows, so be gentle in the comments. He shared this clip hoping others will learn from his mistake. Fortunately, his no-fault insurance policy paid for his repairs anyway, which cost over $4,000 US. Antonio was driving down the interstate when a dump truck performed a pit maneuver on his Nissan Sentra. His car spun completely around, and the driver of a Mazda Miata was unable to avoid hitting him in the process. Incredibly, the truck driver then drove off, making this a hit and run. His dashcam didn't capture the truck's license plate number, but it did get the name of the trucking company, C.L. Parker Trucking. Unfortunately, Antonio hasn't had any luck getting a hold of the company. His insurance provider totaled his vehicle for $31,000, and he was diagnosed with a severe concussion and has been out of work since the accident. If you know anything about C.L. Parker Trucking, email us and we'll pass it along. Antonio replaced his Sentra with a Honda Civic. Watch out, Tesla Cam, he says. There's another Honda on the street. Tanim was headed to work when he approached a Tahoe hogging the passing lane. Tanim used the travel lane to get around him, which is legal in the United States, but then traffic ahead of him suddenly slowed down. The Tahoe slammed into Tanim's BMW X5, pushing it into the pickup truck in front of him. All his airbags deployed, and BMW Assist automatically summoned first responders. When state troopers arrived, they watched his dashcam footage and found the Tahoe driver responsible for the collision. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Tanim told us he had no pain or soreness at all. Unfortunately, his X5 was totaled, but he just ordered a new M3 Competition. He told us his was the first X5 of this body style to be involved in a collision at this speed, and he spent several months talking to BMW engineers about it. Tanim told us that thanks to this event, he'll always have a BMW SUV in the stable. Mark and his wife were headed down a highway in their Honda CR-V when an oncoming pickup truck lost control before sliding sideways across the median. The pickup slid into their lane, and the wet road surface made it impossible for either vehicle to stop. They slammed into the truck, causing airbags to deploy in both vehicles.